Dark Souls. You arrive too late, not to an explosion, but to a hush. The first flame still breathes, yet everything built around it feels ceremonial, automatic, exhausted. Ruined cathedrals, empty altars, bonfires tended out of habit. Structures keep the posture of worship long after belief has thinned. In Dark Souls, faith didn't end with a scream. It calcified into routine. Once Gwyn threw himself into the kiln to keep that light alive, linking the fire and buying time at the cost of his soul. The world burned brighter. He became ash. The cycle learned his trick. What's left is a machine, embers for fuel, bodies as kindling, legends as instructions. The gods recede. Their architecture remains, towering and hollow, a museum of obligation. You're asked to walk it all anyway, to shoulder a rite everyone still performs because no one knows what comes after. The game never begs. It simply points. The shrines, the thrones, the kiln. It lets you notice how meaning survives as maintenance. At the end, there isn't a moral. There's a choice. Step into the blaze, rekindle the first flame, and extend the age of fire for one more turn of the wheel. Or turn away, let the light gutter, and usher in the age of dark. The text doesn't reward you with certainty. The world doesn't shift into clear good or evil. It just keeps existing, altered by your decision, indifferent to your reasons. That ambiguity is the point. The endings are famously read as two valid verdicts on a tired cosmos. Prolong the known order or accept its night. The altar doesn't argue, it waits. And in the waiting, Dark Souls asks a harder question than right or wrong. When the sacred is only a system, what will you keep and what will you let go? SOMA. SOMA doesn't scare with monsters behind doors. It scares you by making you ask, am I even me anymore? You begin as Simon Jarrett, a Toronto bookstore clerk dying slowly from brain damage. You agree to an experimental brain scan in the hopes of recovering. Then you wake. Not in Toronto, not in your body. You're in Pathos Tau, submerged beneath the ocean, surrounded by rust, dripping water, hums of machines, and silence that answers your thoughts. This shift is the point. The scan never transfers you. It copies you. The original Simon stays behind, alive and unobserved. Now there are two. One in the old body, one in this new digital or robotic shell. The one you control carries your memories, confusions, guilt, but the game never lets you forget the version left behind in the dark. As you delve deeper into Pathos 2, you see architectures meant to preserve humanity. The Ark, a digital heaven waiting to be launched. The Way You, a machine that believes in gruesome preservation at any cost. You meet Catherine, once human, now living in a device, who shows you the choice. Upload into the Ark or stay trapped in the dissolution. The game forces you to live inside that limbo. The horror isn't a beast. It's the uncertainty that your identity might be a file, that when you step into a new body or a digital world, there may be a you left screaming in the original shell. At the end, the decision you make won't confirm anything. It just leaves you with the silence of knowing. One of you may survive, but which one you are no longer has meaning. SCP-001. If you don't know SCP, imagine a secret archive of cosmic horrors, classified files, security logs, testimonies, each more unsettling than the last. SCP-001 is the apex of that archive. When day breaks, in every myth, the sun is divine. Here, it becomes apocalypse incarnate. The sun still rises, but its light kills. Organisms, even humans, liquefy where daylight touches them. Skin melts, bodies collapse like wax. Nothing survives exposure. That's the real terror. It's not a monster lurking in shadows. It's the familiar sun you trusted. We step outside and our bodies betray us. Birds keep singing. Trees stay rooted. Everything looks the same. But the light has rewritten the rules. Containment is impossible. Survivors trap themselves in concrete, cover every inch of skin, build walls to block midday, but daylight seeps in anyway. No weapon, no fortress, no plan stops it. The Foundation's own documents warn, once you open a curtain or crack a window, the light floods through. In When Day Breaks, the divine isn't gone, it's been perverted. Light is no longer blessing. It's judgment without mercy. The rules that governed life before, day and night, healing and warmth, are over. And when you walk outside, even for a moment, your body becomes the battlefield. There's no comfort here, no resolution, just the knowledge that God changed the contract, and you're the one left to pay. Warhammer 40K. Warhammer 40K doesn't begin with chaos. It begins in triumph, but that triumph is a trap. There was a time when humanity didn't just survive, it rebuilt stars. During the age of technology, machines constructed worlds, artificial intelligences governed progress, and warp travel opened the galaxy. Science, not worship, was God. Suffering was postponed, war optional. Then it all cracked. That collapse wasn't one thunderous event. It was slow rot. The artificial intelligences, the men of iron, turned, and humanity paid the price. Warp storms sundered systems. The immaterium, once navigable, transformed. Thought became form, and the raw emotions of billions, fear, anger, despair, gave birth to powers that had no body but devoured meaning. Chaos was not unleashed. Chaos was revealed. For millennia, mankind wandered its own graveyard. The age of strife scattered worlds, shattered culture, and left many to regress into feudal rule or dogmatic cults. On Mars, the priest-engineers, guardians of reason, became zealots worshipping cold machines they barely understood. The imperium that rose was built on fear as much as hope. Then came the Emperor, a man crowned by desperation and psychic might. Yet even he couldn't hold back fracturing faith. His greatest failure came from within. Horus, his favored son and warmaster. Endowed with love and trust, Horus fell slowly, tactfully, tempted by whispers rather than thunder. When he turned, the civil war fractured the Imperium forever. There are no heroes here. The light at the end of prophecy is smoke. Empires cling to lies. Machines roar at ruins. And somewhere, in the warp between stars, gods whisper their hunger. This is the darkness humanity built. Faith abandoned, science betrayed, and hope sacrificed on its own altar. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Neon Genesis Evangelion isn't an anime you watch. You enter it, and it pulls your face into the mirror so hard, you forget whether you're watching or being watched. The show never disguises that its real monsters are inside. You have nerve, cold, cryptic, all control, and children drafted into piloting Evas. But these Evas aren't mechs. They are organic, living, stitched partly from human flesh, partly from something higher. They breathe, they bleed, they question. The angels aren't beasts of instinct. They are fragments of a divine narrative humanity once believed in, now rewritten. They share more DNA with humankind than we'd like. Their forms shift, geometric, alien, horrifyingly intimate. Their arrival forces nerves' secrets to leak, psychological trauma, familial bonds, godhood ambitions hidden under research lab walls. The story is no longer about defeating them. It's about facing why we built them in the first place. Shinji pilots Eva-01 under pressure no child should feel. His identity fragments. Is he human, pilot, instrument, offspring? When sync overloads, he merges with the Eva. The boundary blurs. The soul becomes code. The flesh becomes conduit. What you control is partly machine, partly your nightmares given shape. In those moments, the show asks, if the soul can be digitized, rewritten, lost, what remains of you? And what terrifies even more is the silence afterward. When everything unravels, no one steps in to save you. No higher power validates your agony. The script ends not when the battle finishes, but when you realize the battle was inside you all along. Neon Genesis Evangelion doesn't grant you closure. It demands that you awake inside your own broken myth. No longer human? You begin with a note. Osamu Dazai vanished 3 days after finishing No Longer Human. He died by drowning, alongside the woman he loved. The manuscript remained. The title, Ningen Shikaku, doesn't just mean no longer human. It means disqualified from humanity. A verdict life writes slowly after all the parts inside you fracture. The novel is stitched from the notebooks of Oba Yozo, a man who wears a mask of laughter but carries silence inside. In post-war Japan, he drifts through life in fragments, school, art, addiction, never letting anyone see the chasm under his smile. He becomes a clown among ghosts, an outsider pretending to belong. No crime, no monster, no divine curse, just the slow erosion of self. The darkness of this world isn't drama, it's absence. Emptiness. The divine didn't abandon Oba. It simply never knew he existed. No punishment, no apocalypse, no reveal. Only the daily cruelty of being alive in a universe that was never listening. The novel is a confession masquerading as fiction, and it doesn't frighten by what happens. It terrifies by what never comes. He survives while forgetting. He breathes while fading. If the worst thing is death, the worst thing here is living so softly that no one notices. The silence outlasts any scream. In No Longer Human, the universe isn't ruthless. It's indifferent, and one day, you vanish from inside, with no one ever there to testify. The Mist. If you want a nightmare where divine absence isn't metaphorical, it's suffocatingly physical, The Mist is your doorway. The storm that follows a town in Maine isn't just meteorological. It rips open the thin places between dimensions and dumps something unholy into our world. The 2007 film adaptation, helmed by Frank Darabont, changes King's novella not with spectacle, but with despair. King himself said he found the film's ending even more terrifying than his own. You watch David Drayton, his son, and a handful of neighbors scramble into a supermarket. A thick, unnatural fog swallows the town. Inside, the familiar becomes alien. The windows dim. Whispers tremble in corridors. Outside, creatures that defy biology drift in the mist. Tentacles, wings, forms you can't name. Everyone outside the doors becomes prey, and the fog becomes judge, jury, and executioner. That wouldn't be the worst if humanity didn't crumble faster than the monsters. Mrs. Carmody rises up, a zealot emboldened by terror, declaring the mist the wrath of God. In her voice, faith and fear become kin, and those inside? They fracture. Hysteria, sacrifice, accusation. The enemy within becomes darker than what's beyond. The film's ending pushes this further. David, out of options, kills his son and fellow survivors in a desperate mercy, only to hear engines on the horizon. Rescue. The fog lifts. Tanks advance. The reveal crushes false comfort. You lived through horror, and the world waited just outside. There's no divine call here. No hero rescues you. The mist doesn't test you. It betrays you. And the last thing you discover isn't what's in the fog. It's what you become when nothing watches but yourself. All Tomorrows. All Tomorrows isn't a novel. It's a cosmic ledger of what we become after divinity pauses. C.M. Koseman, under the pen name Nemo Ramjet, published it as a free PDF in 2006. It unfolds over 1 billion years, chronicling humanity's slow drift into forms it never intended. It begins with something inevitable. Earth fractures under collapse. Humanity lifts itself onto Mars. Terraforming, adaptation, separation. Eventually, Earth and Mars diverge so far they see each other as alien. Then the Martian War burns whole worlds. The victors, survivors, remodel themselves. They call themselves Star People. They stretch across the galaxy. But this is just the prologue to terrible patronage. Enter the Q, a hive mind that treats life as clay. They conquer, reshape, repurpose. Humans become beasts, machines, hybrids, experiments. Generations pass. The Q leave. But the damage remains. The descendants struggle to rebuild identity from remnants. As post-human splinter, some evolve upward, some devolve, but all ask the same dying question: who are we if our creators can disappear and reshape us at whim? The revelation isn't just that God vanished, it's that when a God remakes you, your soul is optional. There's no revenge arc, no grand uprising. All Tomorrows doesn't promise closure. It whispers, survival is worse than extinction when purpose is rewritten without consent. We aren't saved, we are repurposed. The divine didn't abandon us. It just laid claim and left the invoice. In exploring the darkest universes abandoned by God, we uncover haunting tales where faith fades and divine presence is lost. These compelling stories challenge our understanding of belief, existence, and survival in godless worlds. If you're fascinated by dark universes where gods have forsaken humanity, make sure to subscribe for more content exploring the mysteries and themes behind abandoned universes in sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. Dive deep into the unknown with us.
Subscribe for more interesting stuff. Tell us your experience in the comments.